Hey everybody, it's your girl Bunny. To all of my returning subscribers, hey, how you doing? And for those of you who are new to the channel, welcome. Kick your feet up, subscribe to this family-friendly channel, and don't forget to click the notification bell so you don't miss any posts. Also follow me on Instagram at the same profile name so you don't miss the sneak peeks of what's coming up next. In this video, it's Queens episode 2 entitled Heart of Queens. I give a full episode recap with photos offset to the side, and then I give my review at the end. No need to dig around. I have all of the minute marks in the comments. It's all coming up next. We pick up right where we left off. The ladies viewing their billboard announcing their tour, and Brianna says that she's going to stay with her husband. Even though he cheated, she wants to forgive and move on. Eric joins them in viewing, and the entire time they're being watched from across the street. They notice his face all beat up and want to know what happened, but before they can get into the conversation, they're approached by a masked gunman and shots ring out. Rewind to 2001 in San Diego. It's Professor Sex, Jill the Thrill, Butter Pecan, and explicit lyrics. They're on stage and rapper Cameron joins them. When it's time for Butter Pecan to rap, she takes center stage while the other girls go backstage. While they wait on their parts to begin, Naomi is in tears and the other ladies notice. They all return back to stage and Explicit announces that it's come to this. They're supposed to be one and she can't do this anymore. And the Nasty Bees are done. The crowd is so upset they throw trash. Going to current times in 2021, Brianna watches TV playback of their comeback performance. Naomi even sends a text message saying, "Be strong." We then understand why Naomi sent such a heartfelt message. It's the morning of Bree's husband's surgery. He apologizes once again and hands her an envelope just in case he doesn't make it. Bree says that everything's fine and her main objective is to make sure that he stays alive. Since his surgery is so last minute, Bree couldn't get a babysitter, so she called in some backup, Valeria. As he says his goodbye to the kids, Valeria tells Bree discreetly that she's suspicious of his last-minute tumor. She thinks that the timing is just too much of a coincidence. Before they leave, she tells him, "Don't sleep with the nurse." Valeria then takes a call from Eric, letting him know that he needs to do what he needs to do to book an arena. With their big comeback, they can't perform in some basement stage. Also, her agents are pressing her to do Wipeout. She doesn't want to get her hair wet on live TV, so he needs to make it happen. Tina and Jill wake up in bliss as they finally get to wake up together. They smell something burning and it's Jill's husband. He's dealing with the news of Jill coming out and wants to talk. Darren can't understand why Jill doesn't love him anymore, and he thought Tina was a friend of the family, but he has a plan. Since they all love each other, they should all live together. Esau had multiple wives, and the Bible doesn't exclude polyamory exactly. He even has some notes to rap, but Jill says no, stop. She's thankful that they had their marriage and she'll always love him, but she's in love with Tina, and this love doesn't include him. Before he leaves, he says, "I will never stop loving you," which gives the ladies the creeps. To Jill's surprise, she sees that there is a newspaper front page about her coming out. At the rehab facility, Muffin is rebellious and is not taking the sessions seriously. She has no choice but to do so, or she won't be reviewed as completely fulfilling the program. JoJo has lunch with Naomi, and Naomi gives her some pop piano sheet music. Cam arrives and says that it's been too long since they've last seen each other and they need to catch up. While ordering, it's weird how JoJo and Cam have similar food order preferences. Cam has his own label now and wants to sign Naomi, her only, not the group. He ran across her new music demo and loves it. All she has to do is have a good meeting with his bosses in LA and it's all good. While Jill is in church, many don't want to congregate with her and is even denied communion until she is free of her sins. She leaves the church angry and insulted, and as she tries to get her emotions together and breathe, she is swarmed by news outlets concerning why it took her so long to come out and how is her ex-husband taking the news. New York, 1997, and it's a smaller performance stage. Eric speaks with an exec to get signed, but the exec says that he loves Brianna, Professor X, and wants to speak with her only at his hotel room to speak about some type of deal. Eric quickly gets security to take him out of there. Eric is then approached by a stranger, but as we know to this day, Valeria. She's also known as Butter Pecan. She heard if someone wants to have a good deal in Queens that they need to talk to him. She says it's just shame that the group is so good. She's been there 3 times and has been able to see them, but they haven't been able to get signed. That's what she's there for. Hip hop is the next big thing to pop, and she even slides him a CD. He plays Valeria's CD to the rest of the girls, and they think her flow is just alright, but Bree's just like, let's don't sugarcoat it, it's whack. Valeria doesn't care and doesn't have to write her own lyrics. Michael Jackson didn't have to write his own songs, and the ladies are insulted that she would even mention Michael Jackson. Jill wants to know what's up with the sudden change. Is their hair not straight enough? Are they not light enough? What's going on? But Valeria points out that it's the music industry, and we know all what they look for. It's just business. Her pop look will take them to the next level. Naomi shares Valeria some lyrics to recite, and Valeria has a lot of trouble reading it. Not only that, developing some sort of style to rap it in the first place, but eventually catches on. Explicit believes that this song, Nasty Girl, will be the biggest hit in the industry, and maybe the idea just might work. In present time, Eric speaks with a promoter and a pitch a proposition that the ladies can perform at a stadium venue. The promoter lets him know that he can't cover those expenses for any losses. Even at 50% capacity, he would owe him millions, and he even heard that Eric is renting a house on the hill. He knows that he has no financial backing, but Eric believes that the girls can pack the house. The promoter eventually bends to the offer and lets him know that the lady can perform this Saturday. Eric then gets a call that Muffin has broken out of rehab. Jill vents to Tina about how she didn't think that she would be shunned by her own church and bombarded by paparazzi, but Tina says that's what comes with the territory. Muffin has popped up at Jill's and says she's had enough of that rehabilitation center, and Jill says she's had enough and wants to go to LA to be with her girls, and Muffin agrees to go with her. Naomi meets with Cameron's label peers and they love her demo. There's only one catch. They have this new artist, Tokyo Venus, and she sings, but not really. But they need Naomi to be a writer. She's 21, exotic, and has 21 million followers, and she has a little trouble writing her album. Naomi is the authentic writer that Tokyo needs. Cam is upset because that's not what they discussed. He wants to sign Naomi to his label. They want to know, how is Cam gonna break a 40-year-old rapper singing folk songs? They signed stars, people with undeniably something. Naomi leaves the meeting and she can't understand that she gave her whole life to the industry, but they don't want to hear her. She says it's just over. The surgery was a success, and after chemo, Jeff should be cancer-free. The doctor congratulates them to a bright future with their family. Bree is still upset that he cheated, but Jeff seems to have lost his memory and thinks that she's joking when she mentions that he cheated. He claims to have no idea what she's talking about. Valencia is convinced that he's lying. She saw the same plot on General Hospital. Bree says that she feels guilty and can't leave a man who can't even remember that he cheated. Besides, the doctor did say that short-term memory loss is common with the surgery that he had. Muffin and Jill arrive in disguise, looking absolutely ridiculous. Jill had to leave Montana because she was all in the papers. Valencia can't understand why Jill is just now feeling uncomfortable as the only black person in Montana until now. Naomi then arrives, and Bree is baffled at the fact that they can all ring a doorbell but can't call ahead. Then Eric arrives. He's happy that all of the crew is present. He has booked them at the San Diego Forum, but everybody isn't happy about that. Bree is uncomfortable returning to San Diego after their mishap, and she did one show. Maybe she should just keep looking towards other things to take care of her family. Valencia can't understand how she can't handle business, and this type of performance can bring a lot of money to her family, and Bree returns the insult, letting her know that she can't possibly understand anything about family. After trading some insults back and forth, Eric splits up the riff. Now Naomi wants to give up and says that she's done with the industry, but Jill steps up and letting her know that this was the moment she finally was able to be her true self and she wasn't judged by the audience. They all slowly start to agree that this performance will be very important, and Naomi eventually agrees with them. It's their chance to rewrite not only the group's history, but their own. Eric catches up with Naomi in the hallway and wants to know why she even said that she was done with the industry. Naomi is even more shocked that he was able to book an arena. What's really going on? He brushes over her comment but says that he wants to give their relationship another chance. She reminds him that it was only one night and getting back in a relationship with him would be a mistake. And that decision would be like going backwards. He moves in to touch her face, but then Valeria pops up and he backs away from Naomi. Valeria is very excited and wants to know how he was even able to book a venue such as an arena on such short notice. Eric is nervous and says that he'll owe the promoter $500,000 if they don't pack the venue. He doesn't have that type of money, but Valeria says she does. She believes they won't need it, but she has his back just in case. We go back to 1998 and they get their first record deal, and Valeria is officially in the group. Naomi is not too happy about everything, but then Eric gifts all of the girls Louis Vuitton bags, but Naomi could care less about a purse. She might want to just go ahead and give her purse to somebody else, but Eric says you might want to open it. They open up their bags and it's $200K cash in every one. It's their signing bonus. Valeria says to Eric, "Thanks for making things happen, babe." And Naomi catches that comment. They all sign their contracts and toast to their group never breaking up. On an episode of Cribs, they put their fake smiles on, but the director says, "Can we actually get a cut where you guys look like you actually like one another?" They have to deal with ego, people being late, and Jill having a little bit of sniff on her face. They want to go ahead, record everything so they can all leave and not have to deal with one another. They also find out that Naomi is trying to do a solo album on the side, and Jill obviously doesn't give a care about the group anymore. Jill and Naomi notice that after filming, Valeria and Exit hop into a nice ride, and Jill is pissed because she's still driving a Toyota Corolla. A filming crew member politely approaches Jill for a nice evening out on the town, maybe some dinner. Jill goes off on her, pushing and screaming about how dare she even suggest she is gay. It took Naomi to pull her away, saying, "Hey, what are you doing? What's wrong?" Later on in present day, Jill views the news and celebrity gossip about herself. She hears a loud noise, and unfortunately, it's something she wished she didn't see. It's Muffin, and she's fallen from the roof. She tried to sneak away and go out to a club. Jill wants to talk to Lauren alone. Jill scolds her about how if she would have went to the club, then she would have had one drink and then another drink. And before she knows it, several drinks. And then she would have waken up with a lot of people that she doesn't even know. Muffin lets her know that I'm not you, and you need to be worrying about yourself. You make it seem like you're big and bad, but you run away from everything in your real life. You run away from church, your girlfriend, and even at the fact that you're gay. It's 2021 and nobody cares about if you're gay or not, girl. Just be yourself. Jill tells her to leave her out of it, and they both need to just get their stuff together. As a matter of fact, maybe she should leave because there's nothing else that they can do for her. They get up, walk away from each other, and they pause. And they turn around and they both apologize. Muffin just confesses that she was afraid to talk about herself in rehab. They wanted her to talk about Lauren, not Muffin, and I haven't known who Lauren is since I was 15 years old. Jill makes a promise that if she returns to rehab, then she will be true and genuine about her true self and won't run away anymore. All they can do is move forward, and they've both got to stop being afraid. Eric reports that the venue is sold out. As a matter of fact, the tickets sold out in 12 minutes. Muffin then announces that she's going back to rehab, and she wants them to hold her crown until she gets back. The next day, Eric compliments Bree's beautiful family, and Bree summarizes an episode of Naked and Afraid. You know, it's this show where people go out in the wild, they don't have anything, and they have to get their own clothes and even make their own fire. And there was this one time when this lady was freaking out because she was hungry and they didn't have any fire. But the guy, he grabs this newt, a lizard, and he just bites the head off of it. I mean, they took him out of there, via helicopter because he was losing it or whatever. But I get it. I feel like in this marriage, I just bit off a head of a newt. Eric tells her that she did what was necessary, and he notices that she's doing whatever she has to do to keep her family together. And he can't blame her. Whatever she decides to do, she's a strong person. She's the only one that has an Ivy League degree, a master's degree from Columbia. She's smart, And whatever happens will happen because she's a good person. She'll be fine. We go back to 2001 and Naomi watches a butter pecan commercial, her own fragrance. Naomi can't believe her eyes and what's on television. How is Valencia able to push a rose and pitching perfume? Are you guys still messing around? Eric claims that he kept their relationship secret and that rubbed him the wrong way. Why didn't she ever make it known that him and her were together? But Naomi says that I couldn't just come out with it. If I would have came out with it, the label would have had a problem and other people would have thought that I got my deal, not because of my talent, but just because I'm with you and I let you hit. He pays that all respect, but wants to know, can they just work things out and be together now? Forget the past. But first, Naomi wants to know, are you still messing around with Valencia? And he says yes. Then she leaves. She goes to Cam and wants him to just be there for her in that moment. Present day, Naomi calls JoJo with bad news. The label didn't want her, and it's just hard for them to get her. But JoJo says, are you giving up that easily? I mean, doing everything that you did, being away from me, going on tour with your own money, it would just be a waste. All of that sacrifice, you've got to make them believe you and hear you. You've got to convince them. Naomi rushes to the label exec's home and lets him know that she's a star and sings her heart out on his front lawn. A tearful performance of Wrecking Ball. The next day, he is happy to announce that we're happy and excited to see what you and Cam come up with. There's only one thing in the contract that catches Naomi's eye. It reads that she can't record or perform with the Nasty Bees. It's a way to distance herself from explicit and to build a new image and audience. If she signs, she's turning her back on the group and she can't perform that weekend. Cam is confused. Is this not what you wanted? At rehearsal, Naomi's mind is filled with so much that she can't stay focused. Everything is weird and just wrong, and the women know that something's not right. They asked her to just let out what's wrong, and they can't help her if she doesn't tell them. Back in 2001, Naomi throws a fit that Eric ripped them off. How can they all be broke? They sold 4 million records and the math isn't adding up. Cam told her that something wasn't right about the contract. She won't perform until she sees a contract. And Valencia just stops the arguing back and forth and says there's no need to look at the contract. You're not dumb. You all knew that you were being jerked. Valencia knew that the contracts were trashed, but only looked out for herself and got a new contract. They were all a hustle to her. Her and Eric hustled them all. The deal they signed, a deal to his company, says that they signed away all of their publishing, and Naomi is just salty that Eric chose her. Naomi holds so much back and lets her know that you can have him. The reality is it's harsh and they've got to perform or they won't get paid. It's 2021, the night of the performance, and Naomi is nowhere in sight. Everyone's having a flashback of the last time that they were there. Naomi is in her car ignoring call after call from Eric. Brianna says that they're not gonna let this stop them. She's gonna perform whether Naomi is there or not. It's that moment where she can change everything and all of them should be empowered to perform and move on. She wants the show and Professor Sex to see that everybody still has it. There's a montage of shots as they're announced on stage. We see clips of Jeff returning back home, Jill returning to church, and letting the priest know that she has every right to be there just like everybody else. And gladly at the last minute, Naomi arrives on stage with her girls. Later on that night, Cam arrives to Naomi's hotel saying, "JoJo, her dad, that's me, isn't it?" And that is the end of the episode. And now it is time for your favorite part of the video. That's right, my review. So the plot thickens when it comes to character development, and I'm loving every bit of it. Just like How to Get Away with Murder, starring Viola Davis, there is this flashback of going from the present all the way back to different moments in time so we can get pieces of a story. The more pieces that we get, we're starting to understand how each character feels and what actually happened in certain situations. We have a little bit more information when it comes to Cam's character as he's introduced, speaking more, being more involved, being around her for after so many years, almost 20 plus years, and seeing her daughter and him having questions about it. And as I mentioned in the last review for episode 1, this is clearly going to be character development about who's JoJo's dad. Who will it be? Is it Eric or is it Cam? So it's this mystery, and I'm sure that as many times as we go back, we will get more pieces of the story. So Jill and her husband. So at the beginning of this episode, of course, we have the mystery of the masked gunman and who this person just might be. But if we think about it, each character and what we've learned in this episode has the kind of like the audacity, or maybe everybody that they're dealing with can be a suspect. I think they're going to put it in every episode that's going to have us thinking, oh, maybe it was this person, because I think they all have somebody involved with their lives or any situation where they could be involved with the shooter. I'll give you an example. So with Jill and her husband, right, when he saw them at the getaway, her and Tina, he said, well, you know, I love you and I'll always love you. And he gives that keen look that lets the audience know, well, maybe it was him. But also if we look at Lauren, right, she's dealing with her substance abuse problems, and she was going to leave and meet up with the dealer and get a little something and also go to the club. She can be involved with a lot of dangerous people herself, because when she OD'd in the first episode, nobody came to her aid. It was pretty obvious that maybe she had some people over there. Things were kind of all over the floor, and she invited the ladies to come over later. But who is she involved with? I think we'll learn that more and more in the season. Who are her friends? She's a celebrity with a lot of money. She also talks about how in episode 1, how guys are treating her this way and they're only involved with her for her money. So that's something that can be a suspicious thing as well, because who are her friends? What are they into? Are they trying to get rid of her because she reneged on an offer of money? Does she owe someone money? It could be anything. We're also talking about how Naomi could have upset somebody from the past. Could it be somebody that's upset, that's an ex-lover, a deal that went wrong? We don't know. My ultimate guess is that the suspects of this whole situation is probably Eric and Valencia. Now, they did say in this episode that they cut a side deal and a side contract, right, of them having a different contract from the other girls. So are they in so deep that they owe people? His black eye and his bruised face gave a lot of hints of that could be the case. What I also thought was interesting is that when Eric was telling Valencia, hey, this has got to work out, because if it doesn't work, I'm going to owe the promoter $500,000, and I just don't have that type of money. Also, the producer said that, hey, aren't you in a rented home in the hills? Like, that doesn't belong to you. And I also got some information that you aren't financially stable, giving us all these hints. But at the same time, when he said that, Valencia said, well, I got that kind of money. We were not going to need it, but I got your back. When she said that, it was this look of shock from Eric. Like, how does she have the money? Weren't we in the same contract together? Weren't we getting the same types of deals? But showing her character and how she did with the rest of the girls in the contract, it wouldn't surprise me if she did him the same way and he just wasn't aware of it. So that's a prospect as well. So everybody's a suspect, also including Bree's character, if you think about it, because it could be an ex-lover of his. It could be somebody jealous or somebody upset that maybe they're staying together and they're trying to get things back and they still have feelings about Jeff. Everybody's a suspect when it comes to who that masked shooter could be correlated with. So each episode, I think, is going to give us more and more clues about who this masked person was. Now, viewing from the body frame of who the shooter was, it kind of looks like a woman. What gives that away is it looks like the gunman is holding the weapon with two hands, right? Now, if you've never fired a weapon with a weapon, you have to be pretty trained to hold a gun with one hand, and you know how it's going to shoot. Usually with a lot of movies and things like that, usually when somebody holding the gun with two hands, majority of the time, sometimes it's a woman, because you want to be able to have that kickback and control of the kickback. Not saying that women aren't as strong as men. hand. But what I'm saying is that the stance and the holding of the gun, the person started off with two hands and then went to one. So I don't know. That could be giving us a little eggshell of what's going on. So when it comes to the suspect, that could be correlated with any of these characters. Some people are going to think, oh, well, her husband, Jill's husband says that he's going to love him very much. And that creepy scene, it could be anybody. Okay. It could be anybody. That's just my guess. So with Bree's husband and saying that he lost his memory from the surgery, I think he's lying, okay? Not just because of what he did in the past or anything like that, but what he said before that and saying he didn't remember. He said, well, I'm trying to move on and I want to be a better husband. If you lost your memory, why would you say you want to be a better husband? If you lost your memory, the only memory that you had is that you have a good marriage and everything is okay. So everything should be okay. So he kind of instigated himself, right? If you look at a lot of law shows and court shows, you pick up on how people lie and instigate themselves. And he kind of let the cat out the bag with that one. Let's just say he did forget. Let's just say he has lost his memory, right? It seems like it's selective. He has a very selective memory to remembering everything else, remembering her, remembering the kids, remembering the home, but just not remembering he cheated. It seems a little to me. Like Valencia said, it wasn't this on the episode of General Hospital. It seems a little TV to me. So it wouldn't surprise me. Also, Jill and Lauren's bond, that could grow and develop, right, into something. And when Lauren said, well, everybody nowadays is a little gay, kind of can let us know maybe she's open to, a bisexual relationship, right? So with Jill being that mentor and always giving her advice and them saying, I'm sorry, and being there for each other. Now they've gotten together even closer with the bond, and Jill saying, I'm not going to be afraid anymore. I'm going to try only if you go back to rehab. And then the fact that Lauren is agreeing to that, clearly they're getting closer and closer in a bond. And of course, if that bond develops, of course, Tina is going to see that, right? Which may evolve her in being the shooter. Maybe her over a certain period of time, maybe there's evidence of her having something with Lauren. It's possible. It's TV, right? All in the name of keeping things interesting and spicy and keeping the audience on their toes. I think it's wonderful. As I mentioned before, I think this is a fluidity kind of matching How to Get Away with Murder, that series, and giving us flashbacks and only pieces at a time. And then at the end, nobody really having a good guess about what happened. And we're all shocked at the end to know who the shooter is, to know who the father is, to know all this stuff. So very, very entertaining. Also, wonderful performance by Brandy. Her voice is absolutely beautiful when she performed Wrecking Ball. Absolutely. I was just like, oh, her voice is just so angelic and beautiful. And the way she layers all of her vocals is just, it's just no one else like Brandy. She has that voice where you just hear a couple of notes and you know it's her. So let me know what you thought about this episode. I thought it was absolutely amazing. And I know we're going to get more and more music. And just the preview that they showed for next week when her and Eve were rapping, it was just rapping back and forth. I just thought it was just absolutely amazing. And, Eve, she's just so fluid with her rapping and her bars. It's just crazy. Absolutely crazy. Oh, and the scene where Valencia, when she's reading the piece of paper, trying to recite the rap lyrics, and she's like, look, I don't really have to know how to write my own lyrics or rap. I mean, it's just the business. We're seeing more and more of that to this day. And we're learning through a lot of documentaries, right, and movies that a lot of artists never really knew how to sing or never really knew how to do this or that, but they got a writer or a choreographer, or they got what they got because of image. It's really sad, but the way that the industry was at that point in time, colorism, do you really have to have talent? All of that stuff still exists today. I mean, people still have careers, and we're just like, okay, how? I mean, it still happens, and we were just able to kind of just really see the blunt reality of it all and how stuff like that happens, and how when she did join the group, they did kind of have the addition of this pop identity that was added along with hip hop, which made them just shoot through the roof when it came to popularity. But let me know how you felt about that. Leave your opinions in the comments. I can't wait to read your opinions. You know, I respond to everybody, whether we agree or disagree. I love you all. Hope you have a wonderful rest of the day. Make sure to check out Wu-Tang and American Saga, as the last episode premiered this week, you guys. So hopefully there will be a season 3. Most definitely, I think there will be a season 3 because that series is absolutely wonderful. Check out the reality show Ready to Love, and also the final season of Insecure. Make sure that you check out the final episode. The first episode of the last season. That's in the pinned comment, okay? So you don't have to search through that in the playlist. I got everything you need down below. Check out Queen Sugar, which is an amazing season. Everything is just amazing. There's so much to watch on this channel, so you make sure that you check that out. And it's family friendly, so make sure to share it with family, friends, co-workers, whatever you can think of. And also follow me on Instagram at the same profile name, so you don't miss sneak peeks about me and everything else going on and shows that are coming. You kind of get in the VIP of what's next, and you're gonna know. But click that notification bell so you don't miss anything. All right. In the meantime, in between time, take care of yourself and each other. Bye.